So we're on Daf Yud Amud Aleph, and my program for today would be to make some progress on Daf Yud, and then spend some time back in the Yalkut HaBikurim, in the on the Sugya of the Yerushalmi that we mentioned there. So here on Daf Yud, the Gemara, if you recall, had quoted Rav Safra at the very end of Daf Tes on Beis, and Rav Safra had interpreted Rebbe and Rav Chia in a way that it would include Eishes Achim Shelo Chaya Ba'olam. But that would require an answer to the following question. What about Rebbe? Rebbe, if you recall, came down very hard on Levi when Levi wanted to include an extra category of an erva in interpreting our Mishnah at the beginning of Masechet Yevamot. And we're always going to have to ask the question, why did Rebbe respond in a very harsh way to Levi? And he got upset with Levi because Levi was entering into a machlokes in the case of Anusas Aviv, Imo Anusas Aviv. And Rebbe responded by saying and establishing a principle that bepluta lo kamayri, that our Mishnah is not interested in getting involved in a machlokes. However, if we accept Rav Safra and Rav Chia's statement is that you can have shtei achios, where muteres l'zeh, muter v'asur l'zeh, etc., even in the case of Eishes Achim Shelo Chaya Ba'olam, and he works that out based on Rabbi Shimon, then what about Rebbe? Because now Rabbi Chia is entering into a machlokus between Rabbi Shimon and the Chachamim. And therefore the Gemara asks on the second line, El Rebbe Hani Kloli Leslie. If you're going to have some explanation and justification for Rebbe rejecting Levi, and now it seems that you cannot invoke the principle of the Bepluta lo kamayri, because according to this presentation of Safra's presentation of Rabbi Chia, we are getting into a machlokas. We are only inviting Eishes Achim Shelo Chaya Ba'olam by advocating in favor of Rabbi Shimon. Then we're going to have to assume that Rebbe Hani Kloli Leslie. In other words, that Rebbe could not accept Rabbi Chia the way Rav Safra understood Rabbi Chia, that in all the case of our rayos, including Eishes Achim Shelo Chaya Ba'olam, we have asur l'zeh, muteres l'zeh, shtei achios, because according to Rebbe, it's impossible to interpret the Mishnah in that light, because Rebbe holds from the position of bepluta lo kamayri, and Eishes Achim Shelo Chaya Ba'olam, as we saw, can only work out according to Reb Shimon against the Chachamim. So that at this point, the Gemara sees irreconcilable Rebbe with Rav Safra's understanding of Reb Chia, because Rav Safra is based on Reb Shimon, and Rebbe holds that bepluta lo kamayri. Okay, that was the last thing that we saw. But now the Gemara wants to suggest a brand new approach to Rebbe and to why Rebbe objected to Levi in the case of Imo Anusas Av. So let's see if we can find the place here. We're up to Rav Ada Richna, which I think we just began yesterday at the end of Shir. It's 3 lines down from the top. Kamei de Rav Kahana, Amar Mishmei de Rava, Li Olam Islay Le Rebbe Hani Kloli. It's quite possible, therefore, that Rebbe accepted this klal of Rav Chia, and that all the arayos in our Mishnah fit into that framework of asura lezem muteres shtei achios, even a case of eishes achim shel hoyabol, despite the fact that that could only work out according to Rav Shimon. But now you have to ask, so why did Rebbe reject Levi in the case of imo anusas aviv? Hachi kamar. This is what Rebbe had in mind to explain why the Mishnah could not be possibly refer or add, I should say, another category of an erv, namely imo anusas aviv. Now, by way of a little bit of an introduction, a short introduction, when we talk about shtei achios that fell for Yibum in front of two brothers, then she is asura on one of them, and she's muteres to the other brother, and the other Yevama, the other sister, is asura on the other brother, but she's muteres to the first brother. And the Gemara says, imo anusas aviv, bechado mishkachas la betarte lo mishkachas. You could not possibly have two Yevamos that are sisters that fell in front of two brothers, each, right, if you match them up, each Isser is going to be the same Isser, meaning Leah is going to be Asura al Shimon and Rachel on Levi with the same identical Isser. That's impossible in the case of Anusas of. So what we want to do now, the Gemara is going to try to explain why that's so. And we're going to try to figure it out based on two diagrams. Okay, then? So the two diagrams that we're looking at are Ayin Dalid and Ayin Hey. But before we look at the diagrams, I Yaakov Shtei Achios Onas. So we have a case where Yaakov had an onus with relationship with both Rachel and Leah. Now, from the onus with Rachel, Levi was born. From the onus with Yehuda, from the onus with Rachel as Levi, and from the onus, so that was with Rachel, was Levi was born, and from the onus of Leah, Yehuda was born. Now Yaakov is married to another woman, and he has two sons from another woman. They are Reuven and Shimon. So Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda are brothers because they share the same father. They do not share the same mother. Well, actually, okay, I don't know if this is relevant, but Reuven and Shimon might have the same mother, right? Okay, I don't know if that's relevant. Nimtza, he says. And for those of you who have the Masifta, we're on the left column of Yud with an Aleph in the brackets. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Achimei Av. Nasa Reuven es Rachel. Now Rachel is almost, but not quite, the wife. I'm sorry, 1 second. right? Almost the wife of Yaakov. I mean, again, this doesn't help anybody but me. But what I mean by almost the wife of Yaakov, Eshes Aviv is an Ereva. But our case is Anusas Aviv. So Yaakov had an ones with Rachel, and we said that Levi was born of that relationship. So what's the in Hilchas Arayos, what's the relation between Levi and Rachel? It's not Eshes Aviv. Just 1 second. No, 1 second. Levi, and that doesn't make any sense because Levi is a son to Rachel, correct? Did I get that right? Levi is a son to Rachel. Just 1 second. Now Yaakov marries another women, and he has 2 sons from that other marriage. That's Reuven and Shimon. Fine. So now, is Reuven allowed to marry Rachel? And the answer is that depends on Anusas Aviv. Let's assume that Anusas Aviv is not the same as Eshes Aviv. So that Rachel is not Eshes Aviv because she was never married to Yaakov. She had a rape situation with Yaakov, so that's called Anusas Aviv. So therefore, Reuven is allowed to marry Rachel. Anusas Aviv. Now let's assume, if I'm on the right track, that Reuven eventually is going to die, which means that Rachel is going to fall for Yibum to Shimon. I'm not sure if I'm right, but let's see if that works out. Because again, Shimon and Reuven are brothers. They share the same father. Reuven married Rachel because Rachel is only Anusas Aviv. But now let's take a look at Reuven's wife, Rachel, and her relationship to Levi. Let's take Levi, for example, correct? Because Yaakov originally had this onus with Rachel, and Levi was born. Levi is the brother of Reuven. If Reuven marries Rachel and dies, then Rachel falls for Yibum to Levi, but Levi is the son of Rachel. Okay? Now, Shimon, Nasa Sachosa Leah. So we now have, if Reuven and Shimon both die, we have 2 sisters, correct? 2 sisters. Right? Yaakov Shtei Achios Onas, 2 sisters that fall for Yibum to 2 brothers. Again, because both Reuven and Shimon died. Let me see if I got that right. Nasa Reuven is Rachel. Imo shel Levi. Shimon nasa sachosa Leah. Shehi imo shel Yehud. Umesu Reuven v'Shimon. Okay, so that's good. I mean, it's not good news. I mean, it's good, but I mean, it means I'm slowly getting the mechanics of it. So now, if Reuven and Shimon, who are married respectively to Rachel and Leah, die, then the 2 sisters fall for Yibum to Levi and Yehud. Correct? Reuven and Shimon die, and 2 sisters, now Rachel and Leah, fall for Yibum to Levi and Yehud. Now, one of these 2 sisters, that's Rachel, is the mother of Levi. The other sister that's Leah is the mother of Shimon, of Yehuda, sorry. So now, in this case of ones, so we have shtei achos. Asur l'zeh, mutes l'zeh. Let me just think about that for a second. Unless there's another erva here that I'm not aware of. He says, look at Sir Ayin Dalet. This is the and case that we mentioned yesterday. Okay, so let's just see. I just want to take a look at Ayin Dalet. He tells you to look. So what do you have over here? He says, Yaakov onas shtei achios Rachel Leah, Yolda lo Rachel es Levi, Leah Yolda lo es Yehuda. Yaakov od shnei banim, Misha Cheres, Ruvain, Shimon. I guess he switches around the order of the names because he always wants to have the deceased as either Ruvain or Shimon. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, Nasa Ruvain es Rachel anusas aviv, imo shel Levi. She'ena eshes of Shimon Nasa es Leah achosa anusas aviv, imo shel Yehuda. Mesu Ruvain v'Shimon, those are the two X's, right? Beli banim. Umishkachas leishtei achios Rachel Leah noflos lefnei bneihem Levi v'Yehuda liyibum. Omnam, you have that omnam there in the dark print. Matzanu kan shtei achios shenoflos lefan of liyibum. Shtei achios, right? Shenoflos lefan of him means, I guess, either Levi or Yehuda. Aval asura lezeh mutes zeh lo mishkachas. Lo mishkachas. That's what he says here. The next line in the Gemara. Achosa shehi yevimta mishkachas. So you could have two sisters that are falling for yibum in front of these two brothers, but asura lezeh mutes zeh lo mishkachas. And he says, why? Sharei kishem shekol achas ben asura al bina mishum imo asura gam achosa Allah mishum achos imo. Okay, so that was the missing piece of the puzzle. So at this point, we cannot work out in anusas aviv the shtei achos. Why? Because we'll always be stuck with achos imo, and therefore there will be no yibum on either of these two sisters. So now the Gemara says, well, let's check out another possibility. That's going to be diagram number Ayin Hey. Ve'i shtei nachrios onas. So now the new case is where Yaakov had an honest relationship with two women that are not sisters. So now we're going to talk about maybe Sarah and Rivka. We'll see. The Yoldelo es Levi v'Yehuda. Okay, that didn't change really, right? Levi and Yehuda. Achar kach nisu ha'anusos leRuvain v'Shimon v'nei Yaakov. Okay, we're going to have again the emo. If Reuven and Shimon are married to these two women and they fall in front of Levi v'Yehuda, then there will be, right? Reuven could be miyavim Rivka and Shimon could be miyavim Sarah. Asur l'zeh mutes l'zeh mishkachas lo. So that's good, and we don't have a problem of achos emo here, correct? Let's just double check that. Because, for example, because Sarah and Rivka are not sisters. That's also a problem. Why? Achosa sheyevimta lo mishkachas. Right. We want to come up with two achios that fall for even for the two brothers, and we can get muteras l'zeh and asura l'zeh, but we're not talking about achios. We need a case of achios, and he explains it barichus here in the Masechet. He says the whole point of the Mishnah is to remove what's called achos kukasa. That even though she's a sister to Yos Kuka, nevertheless she's not really achos kukaso, because the other sister's not skuk at all, insofar she's an erva and asura, and therefore there's no zika whatsoever. So to tell me that in shtei nachrios you could have asura l'zeh, muteras l'zeh, that's not relevant to the subject. So we can summarize before we go on to Rav Ashi that at this point, the reason why Rebbe was so harsh with Levi in terms of Anusas Aviv is because it would not fit into the Mishnah of Asura L'zeh Muteras L'zeh and Shtei Achos. Rav Ashi Omar Li Olam Lesle LeRebbe Hani Kloli. Rebbe did not accept the klal of Rav Chia. And we don't really have to say that all the arayos that are mentioned in Mishnah can fit into the category of shtei achios asur l'zeh, muteras l'zeh. Ubeplukta kamayri. So we just had Rav Ada. We don't accept Rav Ada. Rav Ada is working on the assumption that Imo Anusas Aviv did not fit into the klal of Rabbi Chia, but now it's saying, according to Rav Ashi, that Rebbe did not accept the klal of Rabbi Chia. So you don't have to say that all the arayos listed in our Mishnah fit into this pattern. And the Mishnah could mention even things that depend upon a machlokas. So now you can't give the answer that Imo Anusas Aviv doesn't work out according to Rabbi Yehuda, because now we're saying that Rebbe holds B'plukta Kamayri. Umay. So why did Rebbe give it to Levi over the head? Kimduna Shani Sheino Ein Lo Roat Moch B'Kod Kodod Hachi Kama. My timer Lo Diakto Masnisi. That Imo is probably here's just to get the structure. What Rebbe is upset about is that for Levi, the underlying premise of Levi, that our Mishnah should be including a 16th category, meaning Imo Anusas Aviv, is based on the Mishnah of Shtei Achos. Says Rebbe, forget about stretching out to Shtei Achos. Our Mishnah itself could not possibly be Imo Anusas Aviv, because our Mishnah is authored by Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yehuda holds that Anusas Aviv muteras. Again, if I can prove from our Mishnah that our Mishnah reflects the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, then Levi's question could be answered right here in our Mishnah. That the reason why Imo Anusas Aviv is not mentioned in our Mishnah is because it was rejected by Rabbi Yehuda, and our Mishnah is authored by Rabbi Yehuda. My time alo diakta masnitzim. Why weren't you careful about our Mishnah? The masnitzim Rabbi Yehudahi, the asar anusas aviv. Second thing, asar man. Now I'm missing one point here. May achar church bigger number of Geshitas Rabbi Yehuda came. A Mishnah no ketas anusas of b'chal raisa ponchus sasma mitzrayel shitas asura afli yoch mishum anusas aviv ha she'eno imukol she'ena nafs subsent rasa aim towards. So again, our Mishnah lists 15 arayos. Shepochos es tzaroseiah min hachalitza v'hayiv. That could not work out in the case of anusas aviv, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Again, we're going to prove later on that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. But before we get to that, let's just see how that pushes Levi off. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, Asura hi achli achiv mishum anusas aviv. Meaning what? That you're going to tell me that my father, let's say, had a relationship with a woman. This girl was born, and now she is going to, let's say, if my father marries another woman, right, who's not related, and you're going to tell me that in such a case, she falls for Yibum. If she falls for Yibum, right, because like these other two brothers, what do we call them? Reuven and Shimon came from another wife. And now she falls to Levi. And Levi is the son of one of those two brothers' wife, who is his mother, correct? So in that case, there's an erva of anusas aviv, according to Rabbi Yehuda. And if there's an erva of anusas aviv, then there's no erva of ashes aviv. And if there's no erva of ashes aviv, then there would not be a p'tur of the tzara. Ein p'tur tzara el b'makom iser ashes ach. You have that? Again, that's not something that's immediately apparent, but hopefully we're going to get to that point. So again, we have two goals now. One goal is to establish that our Mishnah reflects the Shita Rabbi Yehuda. We don't know why or how. But the second goal is to prove that there's no p'tur tzara if there's no iser ashes ach. And in the case of imo anusas aviv, there will be no p'tur of ashes ach, and therefore there will be no p'tur on the tzara. Let me just see if he does he. I think the next line of the Gemara is to answer how we know our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. But let's just see why there's no p'tur of a tzara in anusas aviv. Let's just go through that again. If you would have a case of anusas aviv, now she falls for yibum, and she was anusas aviv, then the yavam would be also to her irrelevant of ashes aviv, but because she's anusas aviv, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Let me just go back to Anusas a second, if you don't mind. Back. Where is oh, so this I think is diagram number mem. What is it? Well, for me here, I think it's mem vav. Let's just see what happens. Yaakov marries Rachel, and Shimon is born from that marriage. Okay. Now, Yaakov onas es Leah. Okay. The Yodelo es Reuven. Again, Reuven and Shimon are brothers. Nosa Shimon es Leah. This is before Rabbi Yehuda. Let me see. Maybe this is before Rabbi Yehuda. Nosa Shimon es Leah. Shimon marries Leah. And Leah was Anusas Yaakov, correct? Shehi muteres lo kevin she'ena ishes of. Base Shimon below Banim. Naflu Nashal with Ruve Liyibim. Again, Leah is Anusas, and now Shimon marries Leah. Do I have that? Nasa Shimon is Leah. Anusas, and then base Shimon below Banim. Naflu Nashal with Ruve Liyibim. Shimon married Leah. That's according to the Chacham. And now what happened? Shimon dies, and Leah falls even to Reuven, if I got that right. So Leah falls even to Reuven. And what's the relationship? And that's his mother, right? Leah is Reuven's mother, because Reuven was born from that relationship, that honest relationship, Yaakov and Leah. So that would be Imo that patters up the Tzara as well. Shimon has another one. Okay. However, that's again Yehud. Why? Because it would be impossible for Shimon to marry Leah, because Leah is Anusas Yaakov. That's what I understand. That's like, we're talking about Imo. He says, Afshe Eno Imo. This must be a different case. Does anybody have a diagram for this? Rayos approaches Hossein and Achalitza when Jarei Shitaso Asura he Afli Achiv Mishum Anusas Oviv Af She'eno Imo. So like want to get that one line. Once I get that one line, I think I'll be okay. Right? Because Rabbi Yehuda holds he can't marry a Nusas Ovid. Therefore, Shimon could not be married to Leah. Okay, Shimon could not be married to Leah. Now what happens? Well, this whole diagram could not possibly be. Something else he's there's no there's no P'tur Tzara. So exactly is let me, if you don't mind, Rebbe, so I'm going to read the next piece of Gemara because I have a suspicion that the diagrams for the next piece of Gemara will help us out. But Tani, now he's quoting a Mishnah Daf Yud Gimel, Sheish Arayos, Hamuros, Elu, from these 15. Of Arayos Asuros, Rak Alav Yavam, Avol Mutaros Emli Ochiv Hametz. With Mikrish and Nisli Ochiv enough Yavam, Ein Asuros, Osos Afes Tzorzen Ol. Sheish Elu, Hamuros Yoser, Shem Asuros, Gam Al Ochiv. With Neshem Nisuos Lacherin, Sorsein Mutaros Lov. Imo v'yeshes aviv v'achos of. I imo, ilema v'nesuas of. I v'yeshes aviv elolav hanusas aviv. Toni v'nei shehein nesuos lacherim. Lacherim in la'ach lo. Man shamale de istei svara. Rabbi Yehudi the Asar Banusas of Achilo Tani. So he tells you to look at Sir number Pei Dal. Let's see if Pei Dal will help us. Yaakov Nasa es Sarah, Yodelo es Ruby, Ein Nasa es Rivka, Yodelo es Shimon. Umeis Yaakov, V'nisa Ruvain Liavram. Liavram od Isha Le. Mesa Alzel Mersa Mish Hebron Rivka Imo Shel Shimon Yecholi Nase Leruven Achiv Sharehi Ashes Aviv Eliavram Shar Ena Oseres Sarata, Umuto Shimon, Lisas Leah, Saras Imon. Okay. And this has nothing to do with Yibum, right? There's no Yibum over here. Avram died. Sorry, who died? Yaakov first. And then Avram marries Yaakov's wife, Rivka, and another woman named Leah, and now Avram dies. So Rivka is the mother of Shimon. Yeah, but that has nothing to do with Yibum. So Sheish Arayas Kamus Me'elu. So same Mutaras. If I understand correctly, so same Mutaras means because there's no Yibum over it. Does that make sense? In play chain the Suoslat area, right? There's no Yibum over here. It's so same Mutaras. Okay? So same Mutaras. Sorry. What the Hava meaning was, but why would you think so saying us? Oh, I see. The Hava meaning was that since Shimon is the son of Rivka, then Shimon can't marry Leah because Leah is the tzara of his mother Rivka. The answer is no. There's no Yibum over here. Therefore, he can marry the tzara. Okay, fine. My emo. Now, amongst this list of 6 arayos, the first on the list was emo. Okay. So now we just had a case of emo. Because Rivka is the mother of Shimon. Is Ilema Linisuas Aviv. Is Hainu Ashes Aviv. Oh, we missed the boat. Shimon could not possibly marry Leah. Forget about Sarah. Shimon can't marry Leah because about Leah. Why is she Ashes Aviv? Okay. Shimon's father was Yaakov. Leah was never married to Yaakov. Leah was married to Avram. What am I missing? Gentlemen, are you able to help me out here? Why is there an Easter Ashes Aviv here? Am I looking at the right seer? It says here, a dal. What do we say? The base of Kemecher Rivka, Imo Shel Shimon, Eni Echol Linasi Ruvain. Oh, we're introducing Ruvain over here to the picture. I didn't pay attention to Ruvain here. We have Ramshus. Rivka could marry Avram. She can't marry Ruvain. Because Ruvain, because Rivka is the wife of Ruvain's father. Okay, so that we were right. That the punchline is that Shimon could marry Leah, even though she's a tzara of Rivka. Now Rivka is the mother of Shimon, but now what about Reuven? Reuven can't marry Rivka because Rivka is Ashes Aviv. Correct? Ashes Aviv. What's the point over here? Oh, I see. The Mishnah that we're studying now, what daf do we say it was on? I forgot. Yud Gimel, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyway, the Mishnah there lists Imo and Eishes Aviv as two separate categories. But in this particular diagram, Eishes Aviv is Imo. So it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't make any sense to set up Eishes Aviv as a category in addition to Imo, because Eishes Aviv is Imo. Oh, so that's going to force us to introduce Pei He. Ella Lav Anusas Aviv. So the only way it could work out as a separate category called again, which of the two are we bothered by? Are we bothered by Imo or by Eishes Aviv? I don't know if it makes any difference, but we're bothered by Imo? Okay, so then, if it's Imo who's Anusas Aviv, then it could work out as a separate category without Eishes Aviv. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda holds that Anusas Aviv is not included under Eishes Aviv. So let's just take a quick look at Pei He. Yaakov Nasa es Sarah, Yodelo es Ruven. Onas es Rivka, Yodelo es Shimon. Okay, so now we're going to get Anusas Aviv. Nisa Rivka liAvram. Li'Avram Arisha Leah, Umeis Avram, V'alzeh Omeres HaMishnah, Shel Leah Muteres L'Shimon, even though she's a tzara to Rivka. And now we have a case, right? So again, now we're going to go back to Ruvain. And Ruvain's relationship to Rivka, correct? And now what we're going to say, that Rivka is Ruvain's mother. Yeah, but what do you have to add the fact that she's Ruvain's mother? She was the wife of Ruvain's father. But the answer is she wasn't the wife of Ruvain's father. She was only an Anusa of Ruvain's father. So that would not generate a category of an Ereva, insofar as this woman was married to his father, to Ruvain's father, and therefore would only be an erva of Imo. So that justifies why we need both Imo and Eishes Aviv. Elolav Anusas Aviv Ktani b'nei shein nisuos la'acher. So now the Gemara has a deal. La'acherim in li'achin lo. What does that mean? He says, I'm just trying to read the dark print on the bottom. Maybe that'll help. He says, Kevan Shab Mishnah Mefareshes HaHeter Hu Mipnei Sherivka Nesua Lacherim Avram Eni Yechola Linose La'achim. Let's say Ruvain. I don't know. It's not doing if you need this Pei He. Again, lacherim in liachim lo. So again, Rivka and Leah are married to Avram. That's called lacherim. Lacherim in, but liachim lo. Which achim? We have Reuven and Shimon, correct? So Rivka and Leah cannot marry Reuven and Shimon. And why is that? Because it's Anusas Aviv. Well, again, in Shimon's case, it's Imo. But let's take Reuven, for example. So Reuven cannot marry Rivka. Why? Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, even Anusas Aviv is considered Imo. No, I'm sorry. What I meant to say is that even Anusas Aviv is considered Eishes Achim. That's what I meant to say, sorry. So Reuven can't have a relationship with Rivka because she is Eishes Yaakov, his father, but she's not Eishes Yaakov. She's only Anusas Yaakov. And that would have to force us to introduce Rabbi Yehuda into the picture. Man Shamalei de Islay Haisvara, meaning that the Ach Reuven cannot marry Rivka. Rabbi Yehudi, the Osar B'Anusas Aviv, because Rivka is the Anusa of Yaakov, who is the father of Reuven. Mishum Hachi Lo Tani Le. Oh, so now we understand why Rebbe rejects Levi. Levi wanted to add another category to our Mishnah, and that was Imo Anusas Aviv. Is that's going to be left out of the Mishnah. Why? Because it's not a case of Yibum that would pater up the Tzara. Anusas Aviv. The Mishnah, the Chalal Tesvav Arais approaches us and Mishum she'enon nesuas liachiv el acherim. But you can never have a case in Yibum because it's always going to be Imo. Because even if, it's always going to be Eishes Aviv, because even if it's an Anusa case, we're going to have an Erev of Eishes Aviv. Mishum she'enon nesuas liachiv el acherim, the Ein Sara el me'ach ha'amru. Again, we get back to this Ein Sara el me'ach. Messed us up already beforehand. The Masnitzin Rabbi Yehudi, the Asar be'anusas Aviv. Me'achar shemishnai shebepirkeinu nebru b'shitas Rabbi Yehuda al kena Mishnah eina noketes anusas Aviv b'chal arayas apochos est tzorothem min haflitzim na'yib sharei l'shitaso asura hi afli achiv mishum anusas Aviv. So we have two brothers, and Anusas Aviv is falling for Yibum because one of those two brothers died. So that would only make sense if that brother was allowed to marry Anusas Aviv. Makes sense only according to Rabbi Yehuda, only according to the Rabbana. Oh, that's what he means. Because then it's not Yibum, it's just Acherim. Yeah, I'm not sure what he means by Isser Eishes Ish, but he means when there's Yibum. Then there's an exclusion of Tzara. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, we can never come up with a case of Anusas Aviv in Yibum, because if it's Anusas Aviv, then Rabbi Yehuda says that he couldn't have married her to begin with. So you couldn't have two brothers and one of them dies, and that woman who's Anusas Avim would fall for Yibum to the other brother, the living brother. That's impossible because what? Because how could the brother that died have been married to Anusas Avim, whose status, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is that of an Erev? It's like Eishes Avim. That's what I think is going on here. Now, how do we prove that our Mishnah reflects the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda? Because you have Imo and Eishes Aviv as two separate categories. Whereas if we're talking about Nesuas Aviv, then you're just repeating yourself, because Nesuas Aviv is also Imo. Did I get that right? Right, Nesuas Aviv is also Imo. So how do you generate a new category in addition to Imo of Eishes Aviv? Eishes Aviv is going to be Imo. Oh, but if on the other hand we introduce Rabbi Yehuda Shita, you could have a case of Anusas Aviv. Anusas Aviv. So what's the case of Anusas Aviv? Again, the Yaakov has an ones with someone, and now you have the other two brothers from, let's say, another wife, and let's say one of them is married to Anusas. No, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't have a marriage to Anusas. So how does Anusas work out according to Rabbi Yehuda? That's what I was just. I don't know why.
He can marry Sarah of the other man. I mean,
Of Avram, you mean that
the point where Avram ends up marrying Rachel and Leah. Rachel is Shimon's
Wait.
mother.
What are we working out here? Are you working out a case in our Mishnah according to Rabbi Yehuda? Because Levi wanted to add Anusas Av to our Mishnah. And Rebbe objects to that because you can't have Anusas Av. And I know that our Mishnah is reflecting Rabbi Yehuda from the fact that we have in the Mishnah Daf Yud Gimel, we have Imo and Eishes Av. It can only work out according to Rabbi Yehuda, because otherwise Imo and Eishes Av are one and the same. It's a repetition. Okay. So
I think his case of Imo is.
What are you giving me? Just so my head is screwed on right. Mm-hmm. Are you giving me a scenario of Imo Mianusas Aviv in our first mission? Is that feasible according to Rabbi Yehuda, or it's not feasible? I'm hoping you're going to tell me it's not feasible.
Right. I don't think it's feasible.
It's not feasible. Why not? Because how can you have two brothers?
Right.
Can you fill it in with names, or just?
I mean, well, just because you can't marry.
But could it be that it's Anusas Av to one brother and not Anusas Av to the other brother? No, that's impossible. Why? Why is that impossible? Can you work that out? Let's say, fill it in with some names.
I mean, if Yaakov and Rachel is.
That's an onus. Okay.
If Shimon's the result.
Right.
Reuven's a brother.
Reuven's a brother.
Reuven can't marry
Plus what? And this is. So what? Shimon died.
I mean,
what's?
I mean, it can't happen. No brother can ever marry Rachel. Nobody who's a son of Yaakov,
because it's always going to be Anusas Av.
Right.
And it's Achim and Av, so the two brothers from the same father, then it's impossible for that to happen. So therefore, let's just go over Rebbe's objection to Levi. Levi wanted to add Anusas Aviv. Correct? Anusas Aviv. Rebbe is saying that our mission is from Yehuda. The Levi wasn't working with the premise that our mission is from Yehuda. And therefore, Anusas Aviv is not awesome. So if Anusas Aviv is not awesome, you could have a case of Yibum with Anusas Aviv. Correct. But now that we've proven that the Mishnah has to shtim with Rabbi Yehuda, then maybe we understand that Anusas Aviv could not possibly be an Mishnah. Okay, that's where we're going to stop for today. All right, so we're up to Amalei Ravina L'Rav Ashi. Now on Yud, with the Dalet afterwards, we have another two diagrams. Do you have that? Pei Vav, Pei Zayin? I didn't get that far, so. And then on Taf Yud Amid Beis, on the top, we have another three diagrams. Wow, the diagrams keep coming. All right, we'll get there. It's this is why Yevamos is not such a popular Masechet, but we're trying it out. So Jeff, we'll get back to that Yerushalmi Mr. Shem with the shiur and what's me blown and all that. Okay then. Everyone should have a great day.